Thank you so much, Donna. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all going really well. Really excited to be here. I'll just start off with a really quick presentation about just the different things that we're working on at Uber at the moment, and then we can quickly go across to doing some Q&A. So I'm Claire, obviously. I'm from Australia. Really quickly, I'm from Australia. Have lived in Amsterdam for the last year, working within the recruitment team. Generally what we do in campus recruitment is to connect students with full-time positions. So we do this through internships, through things like this, webinars, and also company presentations. And we do this for supporting 45 different countries across Europe, Middle East and Africa in tech and non-tech positions. So lots and lots of different variety there. There's my email address as well. Feel free to write that one down and feel free to contact me after this session. I'll explain a little bit more about that shortly. So today I'll talk a little bit really quickly about the Uber story, a little bit about more than ride sharing, so what Uber is doing outside of the traditional ride sharing space, really quickly about Uber culture, and then we'll go for Q&A. So in terms of the Uber story, in 2008 the idea was from Travis, push a button, get a ride. It looks very, very old. You can see that it's very, very rudimentary in terms of its design. We then switched to 2010, where it went live in San Francisco, and Paris was our first EMEA city to be launched. From there, 2015 was 1 billion, 2016 was 2 billion, and then in July of last year, we reached our 10 billion mark, which is a huge, huge accomplishment throughout all of our teams, and that is global numbers there. So I guess the question for me to you is, can you imagine where we'll be in 5 years if that's what we've managed to do in the last sort of 4 years? So super exciting stuff there, or less than 4 years even. Uber right now, these numbers change on a weekly basis. So we're in around 600 different cities, 70 countries worldwide, and we have 23,000 employees. When I started, I think it was only 17,000 employees, and that was last year. So super quick and growing business. Those 23,000 employees do not include any of our customer support people, which we have another around 24,000, and also, of course, all our driver partners as well. Then the future of mobility. So to sort of have a look, we're not just all about just getting people from A to B. We want to do it in the most groundbreaking and technology-driven way possible. To do that, to go to the future, we have to go back to the beginning. So all that car ownership. So this is Henry Ford's T model, and in 1908, that is when it launched in terms of owning your own car. And of course, from then, we got just a couple of cars globally. So right now in the world, there's 1.2 billion cars. And the major reason why I mention this is because 95% of the time those cars are sitting idle. So it's having a look at how we can not only represent mobility, but also represent space-saving measures and a whole different range of the ways we can move people globally. The major thing to replace car ownership is to be reliable. This is a little graph in terms of what goes on in our different sites. So a whole bunch of different American cities there, and you can see that real peak just after 12 a.m. because we're really trying to work with cities. We understand that there is public transport and all sorts of different ways of getting around, but we've found more and more that people are needing transport sort of in those later times of the night. And you can see there that is definitely when our peak time is, and of course we're trying to make that as reliable as possible any time of the day, but particularly in those peak times. This is a Giphy that's not quite working, but the way that we're trying to help the global mobility and the future of global mobility is to pair people together. So Uber Pool, most of you or some of you have already used it in the past. An example of how efficient it's become is within the first 3 months of 2018, because we paired Uber Pool riders together, they travelled 392 million kilometres, so that is 170 million kilometres saved, 7.5 million litres of petrol, and 19,000 tonnes of CO2. So just those 3 months of last year is making a huge impact. We then took it one step further in terms of express pool. So some of you have also experienced this. When I was back in Melbourne for Christmas, I found it quite entertaining to find a car. So to do this, it's pretty much sort of like a walk and ride. So you have a certain area that you are in, and then you can request a ride and be picked up within the same area as someone else. So just to make it that much more efficient way of doing it. And quite fun in my opinion. So affordable is super important. It's something that we're wanting to improve on more and more in terms of using such innovations as Uber Pool and Uber Express Pool. We can decline the cost for that. The graph on the right there is showing in terms of percentage of public transit and Ubers where that line of the cost to own your own car then benefits by not owning a car, and say for the dark green line, 85% of trips by public transport and 15% with a roundabout average of $20, obviously this is US, Uber rides equals the cost of car ownership. I myself here in Amsterdam do not own a car. That's not specifically because I don't want one, but I also can't drive on this side of the road yet, which is terrifying. But also it's a bike city. But on top of that, I know the majority of people working here in Amsterdam don't own a car, so it's a great example of how we can really work with cities to make this happen. We are, as I mentioned, really complementing public transport. The way we're doing this is a map of London during peak hour in the morning time. Those white dots are train stations, and the blue is different Uber trips that are taken. And so you can really see that last mile is what we're really concentrating on. So that mile from home to, say, a bus or train station, and then from the other end, the train or bus station or area or stop to work. So it's really working with cities. We're definitely not trying to replace trains and buses and things, because they do a fantastic job, but it's just helping everyone out that little bit and reducing the need to have to drive to the train station, for example, with your own car. Partnering with cities, super important initiative that we're really trying to implement worldwide is to see how we can best operate. So this is an example of in Nice, they had their sort of train, or I think it was like more of like a light rail sort of service that they worked out it's actually cheaper to have at night time, to not run it, and to have discounted Uber trips. So we call it the ligne de deux. I'm not French, obviously. And those are €6 flat fee rides, which is incredibly sort of groundbreaking in terms of what we're doing at Uber, and to really partner with the cities to make sure everyone gets home at night time without having to run underutilized services. So in terms of more than ride sharing, so what we're really wanting in the future, the Uber's plan, is to have multiple modes of transport in the same app. So by that I mean for example, tomorrow I'm actually travelling to London, so from my house to, say, the train station, and then I get on the train, and then from the train station in London, say, to the Uber office in London. We're trying to make it so you can go from point A to point B, all within the same area. So I would buy my train ticket through there, my Ubers, maybe a jump bike to get from A to B. So that is the dream, and it is actually being realised in so many different areas already. We launched in Denver, you might have seen, in terms of partnering with Masabi. So that's one of the world's leading online ticket sales in terms of public transport. So it's happening. It's slowly but surely combining everything together, which is definitely a lot more seamless experience. As I mentioned, Jump, it's actually super exciting. It's currently launched in 10 different cities in the US. And in a nutshell, it is using bikes for that shorter distance. So maybe some different areas you're not needing to get a car for, say, 1-2 kilometres, but it's too far to walk. So jump on one of our jump bikes. I've had a ride of them. They're quite fun to have a go around town. And that is being launched in Berlin currently, and hopefully coming to some more cities very soon. Uber Freight is being launched as well. So in a nutshell, it's having loads in a truck going from A to B and utilising that extra lot of space. Say if they don't have a load to come back to A, they can then utilise this service with some business partners there. Uber Elevate, always really interesting side of Uber. In a nutshell, it is flying cars or having that area of ability to travel now, travel in the air, sorry. Now we could have launched this far earlier. We're hoping to launch this properly in 2023. The reason being why it took a little bit longer is because we don't want this service to just be for executives and quite people with wealthy and high incomes. We want this to be for everyone and the ability to use it for everyone. So that's why it's taken that little bit longer to just make sure that it is available. So this question was asked of all the Uber employees around about 4 years ago. If we're able to get you a ride in 5 minutes, what else can we get you in 5 minutes? So Uber Eats was born. So as you can see on the left here, it is a very, very simple marketplace, where on the right we've got some extra players, or as we like to say, like burgers and sushi and all the delicious things. So that is, in terms of our life cycle, that's a quick show of what has happened. So we went from Uber Fresh within the Eats app to Uber Eats, and then launched our Uber Eats globally, and it's going from strength to strength. As I mentioned, it's a three-sided marketplace, so it's a little bit more difficult than just a rider and a driver. We've got our eater, restaurant, and delivery partner. You've probably seen them around, when I say them, I mean delivery partners, around the tracks. And it is really the next stage of our Uber expansion. So Uber Eats is 3 years old. It's in 40 countries. It's in 400 cities and 150,000 restaurants. So if you can imagine what you're doing 3 years ago, it was not that different maybe from what you're doing now. And in 3 years, it has really grown exponentially. In terms of just a couple of things of what we're looking for in the future, for eaters, definitely affordability and availability. So having, for example, a restaurant open longer, so you can get your special, I don't know, chips and gravy or something at 2 a.m. in the morning if you're really wanting. Curation customization, so maybe, which also pairs with new use cases, so like diets, groceries. So really pairing your choices more with the app's capabilities. So say I want protein-rich foods, those sorts of things. Restaurants, really putting those data services and additional services for them to really make those informed decisions. And couriers, of course, more flexible earning opportunities and making sure that they have insurance and all sorts of different areas to make sure that they're safe at work.